Yo, can we stop telling people to save as if there's a ways that actually allows for that action to be taken? Like, I'm not saying don't save money. I'm not saying don't invest. Of course, save if you can. Build an emergency fund, of course, if you can. Invest if you can. These are things that need to be done and should be done to the best of your ability. Full stop. This is that kind of video. But when somebody comes to you with financial problems in any year, post 2019, we got to stop hitting them with the same tired explanation. It's like not working. The cost of living crisis is called the crisis for a reason. And it's obviously because the cost of living is in shambles, strung out and it's cooked for all intents and purposes. It's over with. And that's what we have to start addressing. We have to address that before we address personal failings of the person at this point in time, more often than we probably care to do so. Wages have stagnated to a crawl. And somehow a nice little bevy from the corner store is the source of all the woe. Stop capping. Stop capping. Sorry, y'all. I'm exhausted. I'm just tired of, the same constant struggle of, it's your fault. You didn't save. And where are your savings? And da-da-da-da-da. When we really living through like the worst times economically, and nobody's addressing the root problem. But let me jump into it with y'all, and we can talk about what's going on, because I think what a lot of this really comes down to is that we've been trained for a future that doesn't exist anymore, if that makes sense. Like, that's what we need to stop acting like it's not a major feature here or a factor here in the problem, Like, for years, the formula that was set before us made sense, You go to school, you get a job, you work hard, save money, maybe buy a house, maybe raise a family if you were so inclined. And that was a roadmap. And somewhere along the way, the outcomes changed while the advice stayed exactly the same for not one, but at least two, maybe three generations, if we don't really change course now, right? People are getting degrees, people are working more than full time. People are doing what they were told to do by people who have the evidence that it worked for them, right? But it doesn't matter. Somehow we're still being left behind. We're still falling behind. And that's mostly, at least where I see why folks are frustrated. It's not because they don't want to work. It's not because they're lazy. But it's because they did what they were supposed to do, or at least what they were told they were supposed to do. And the math ain't math, and for real, it never really came together. The puzzles never fit, you know what I mean? So when they ask what's going on, and somebody tells them stop buying coffee, stop eating avocado toast, stop, I don't know, stop taking the bus to work, stop putting gas in your car at this point, I don't know. It's come on, we got to figure that one out. The leadership is not only old, but it's like stubborn to the point where they refuse to acknowledge day-to-day suffering, the small pains, that you feel day to day when you have to use your last $20 on the bus pass for the week to get to work, even though you don't have any lunch to take to work because you couldn't afford to buy food to meal prep for work. It's inconsiderate. It's very obviously very highly inconsiderate, but as much as I don't want to be the guy to give them some slack, let's kind of recognize that it's not entirely their fault. They've insulated themselves so much that reality is different for them. And by them, I mean boomers, owner class, people who really don't know a day-to-day struggle that, most people in America today are familiar with, or in the world for that matter, really. It's not just us, right? They're just that insulated. Like, things are just different, fundamentally different on a level. They don't have the same problems, they don't have the same issues, they don't have the same joys. Me missing my flight would be pretty devastating. If I missed a flight to go to another state, there probably would be no way for me to get on that flight at that point. I would just have to scrap the whole vacation, call it money lost, or try to fight with the airlines to get my tickets. But I've seen people, who are much better off, that's not even a problem for them. They just, oh, well, I'll catch the next flight, or dang, that sucks. Let me see what's one of the next flight's leaving. I'll catch that, or buy first class on that one, whatever. I need to get to this thing. I'm here to recognize or understand that a lot of that may be company money. A lot of that may be not their own money, but it's just the fact that you're, I don't know, it's the fact that you're doing it or you get to do it. It's such a foreign concept to me, which leads me to believe that it's just a fundamental difference of lifestyle or of environment that people are, living in, which I think we can all count, point to for other examples, not just the plane one I just brought up, right? So it's fair to say that we should give them some grace, like a little bit, so we can understand that they don't understand what they don't understand. Kid Cudi moment right there for anybody who knows. But damn, man, like, I'm kind of graced out because, for me, a regular problem that I'm having is that rent is over half my monthly income. And that's new, I know that's new for most people, but that's new for me specifically because, like, half my income, damn. Over half of my, like, monthly income, damn. That's crazy. And my apartment still sucks for it to be that much. But hey, I'm not here to complain too much. That's everybody's apartment. No, I take it back. I'm here to complain a lot. My apartment fucking sucks. And I've watched the rent go up from maybe 45% to a good 55-60% of my income at this point. And it's just like, how I'm supposed to go get a coffee? How I'm supposed to go to the store? How I'm supposed to give myself a little treat? Like I was saying earlier, my little bevy at the corner store is hitting my pockets a lot harder than it used to when it was just a bevy at the corner store. A little zebra cake, a little bag of hot flamers, you know what I mean? Now, I gotta, like, seriously consider my moves at the corner store. I have to look at buying my beverage as an investment, which, I mean, to play devil's advocate to myself, I guess I've lost a lot of weight because I'm not buying much of that shit anymore because it's not really worth it. This shit don't even taste the same. But I'm getting off track. But not really. But yeah, I'm getting on track. All in all, it's just hard to feel not heard, continually feel not heard. And after a certain point where people go feeling unheard, it gets dangerous. Not in the sense of anybody is in danger, but because the trade for renting, for example, used to be that it was cheaper than getting a mortgage, which, you don't own anything at the end of it, but at least it doesn't eat your whole paycheck. You have somewhere to live. That was the deal. And people stop feeling heard, and things get more dangerous because the deal that we all implicitly signed up for is no longer being honored. And there's not really anybody to complain to. There's not really anybody to talk to about this. At least anybody to listen anyway. And, back when this contract was in effect, to keep using rent as an example, rent was under $1,000, for a standard one bedroom at the edge of the city, which now you're looking at $1,500 if you're lucky, But in most city centers, we know that's pushing well over $2K. So what we doing with that, And that's just kind of back to the point of the problem here. The social contract of renting and affordability, in exchange for work, and it's expired, and nobody renewed it or cared to renew it. And I think that's the part that's making people lose, at least the part that's making me lose my mind right now. It's not just that things are expensive, it's that we're still being judged by rules that were written in a completely different economy. Hell, 2 economies ago, I would say. It's frustrating. We're frustrated more so, or at least I'm frustrated because I don't want responsibility. And it's not why I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated because somebody, me being responsible or responsibility doesn't seem to be getting stability anymore. The trade for responsible contribution to the system is not really getting a trade back for anything that's stable. Prices are going up. Cost to do things is going up, and prices of food is going up, all this type of stuff. And I just think that the conversation shouldn't be, why are people saving more? Maybe the conversation starts with asking why working full time doesn't guarantee stability anymore. And, until we answer that question, we're kind of arguing about coffee while rent eats half the paycheck, and gets the scones on the way out, And I don't really know exactly what's going to happen next. I don't know if, things are going to get better or get worse, but it does stand to reason that, we're standing on the edge of a new industrial revolution, whether we like it or not, and we can't pretend the old system is going to work at all. Forget perfectly, if it's going to work at all. Something's got to give, man. Something's got to change. And if history tells us anything, the people who benefit most from the system usually aren't the ones rushing to change it. So, who was going to fix it? And honestly, it's probably going to be us, obviously, at this point, I don't want to sit around waiting for older generations to come around. They finna croak. Like, they're not even going to be here. So, I would say that we just spend time going inward before going outward. But if I'm being real, it feels impossible to do so sometimes. And even when it feels impossible, it just has to be done. We should go inward in the sense that we really think deep about what our world's going to be next when we get in charge of it fully in its totality. Because, of course, we're going to have those stragglers who want to keep things in the old way, together. But we, can't let them replant those old ideas or those seeds to get the same thing over and over again in perpetuity. It's just not going to work, And when the outward forces are kicking, absolute ass every day, we have to start somewhere. So we just have to, dig deep and pull something out of ourselves, And I don't mean like bootstrapping it, because we've tried that, didn't work. But we need to like relax and dig deep into that, sense of self, and see what we pull out really, Maybe, the next step is admitting that the problem is bigger than somebody buying a drink at the end of the day at the corner store, and recognizing that the corner store should have better prices for drinks, or maybe there should be more business than corner stores, so people can have better jobs and better wages, or maybe the wages we just need to raise the fucking wages, man. I don't know, raise the wages, dog.